sexy back. We're bringing sexy back.
Let's get it started. Harder, won't you give it up? What you want, body? We're gonna start it as square one. Pause the music up while you get up out of your seat.
And guess what? Tonight, I'm not by myself, as you can see. I got my boy, Dr. Buckingham, in the house, and we're doing a male's perspective. And as you guys know who follow me, I've been talking about this for a while. Ever since bringing sexy back to the marriage, you know, I was wanting to have him there. He had a death in his family. We had an amazing gentleman step in, but it's nothing like having the original on the platform. And so, again, do me a favor. Make sure that you're hitting the share button, letting all my one sexy wives know the wife chat is going down here on Facebook. Hello. As you guys know, me and Buckingham met a couple of years ago, and he is one of the top relationship people in his field. And he actually has the education to back it up. There's a lot of people in our field, and I won't go into that. They have no education, but that's okay. But anyway, he has education. You can hear us. Okay, thank you so much, you guys. Thank you so much for joining. Make sure that you're hitting the share button, letting all my one sexy wives know that wife chat is going down on here, and it's going to be a male's perspective. So tonight, I'm going to get a chance to ask a lot of the questions that you ladies are afraid to ask your husbands, or don't want to ask your husbands, or want a different perspective, because I know what it is to be married, and sometimes want to ask questions or be thinking something, and you like, I might not want to say that because I don't want to be fussing with my husband for the next 2 weeks. So I'm going to ask him all of these questions that we want to ask them, because guess what? He's married to someone else, so his wife is okay. But anyway, so again, you guys, thank you so much for joining us. Buckingham, you know, you and I was having an amazing conversation before we got on here, and I want to kind of continue that because I did have some questions for you just as a male, and then we'll get into some of the juicier things that I want to ask you. As a male in this climate, as an African-American male that is married and have young children, and especially African-American child, you know, I found myself, even though my children, my sons are much older, you know, I have a 27-year-old who's in the military, and then I have this 19-year-old that's out of control like his mama, that has a mouth like his mother. My oldest one is really quiet and laid back like my husband. And then there's me, you know, Joshua, who is just like his mother. I hate to say it, but he really is like his mother. I had to call my sons and have conversations with them about, you know, when you pulled over, you know, what not to say, what not to do, you know, how to control your hands. Don't be, you know, talking with your hands and all of these different kind of things. And I know that your son is young, but you are still an African-American man that has to drive and, you know, go to work and provide and do all of those things. How has that affected you, and has it affected you as far as what you've been experiencing just in this climate right now that we're living in?
Yeah, I think it affects every Black male / man, regardless of, you know, your status, whether you're a father, because my kids are young, but I'm also still an uncle. I'm still, you know, and I have nephews and others who are of age and are in the streets, 21, 22, and 15, and the whole nine. And so I think for all of us, regardless of kind of like the age, I mean, I was personally born in this space called harassment. And so when it comes to the police and the attention and all the things that we are experiencing, what I tell people, they'll say, well, no matter what we do, we're at great risk of being harmed. No matter if you follow what they tell you to do, if you don't follow what they tell you to do, you're a great one. But what I actually say to my nephews and to other young men that I mentor, do what you're asked to do. Don't give them an additional reason to try to up the ante on you. And so, you know, people say, well, if I do everything that they say, they can steal. They can, but do not give them the extra because they're waiting on that. And so when there is increased tension, you cannot actually combat tension with tension. You can't de-escalate that. It's like goes against everything you know. So if you're in this space right now as a Black man and you're confronted with tension, aggression, negativity begets negativity, violence begets violence. And at the end of the day, unfortunately, we're not on the winning end when it comes to that. And so I tell people, use your head and be smart about it. Say, well, I can use my head and I can tell everything they want to tell. They're killing us anyway in the streets like dogs. I understand that. I come from the gutter, from the ghetto of the ghetto, and I've seen drive-by shootings. I saw my first dead body at age 5. So I get it. But I also understand that all that you do have is what they can't take from you is how you cope with the nonsense. Because the minute you give in, we don't have the legal system that's on our side. So we have to practice internal control. As much and as difficult that it is, we have to practice that even when they don't.
Yeah. So, you know, I found myself, you know, my husband leaves every single day to go to work, and he works in Washington, D.C., and he works, you know, at the children's hospital. And I found myself as a wife having a lot of anxiety when he leaves now, especially in the climate that we're living in. And I got to the point where, you know, I was calling him like every 15 minutes into his commute, because, you know, he used to catch the train, but of course with COVID-19, I was calling him and I'm like, are you okay? What's going on? Who's on? You know, like asking all of these questions. And he was like, you know, G, you need to chill out. Like, I'm good, you know, but I was really just having this anxiety of, let me just make sure he made it to work. And as his wife, I thought I was showing him that I was supporting him, checking on him or whatever, but not that he did not want me to do that, but it was just, I was doing it over, like an overkill. So for the wives who are listening, how can we be concerned? How can we show that we care and support you, but not be overzealous and asking too many questions and calling every 15 minutes like we're crazy and all of those different kind of things? Because again, you know, and my husband didn't want me to hurt my feelings, but he was like, gee, like for real, you need to just chill out. Like, how can we be supportive? Do you guys want us to say that we're worried? Is it better for us to keep it to ourselves and talk to our girlfriends? How can we like navigate this and be a support system to you, let you know that we're concerned, but also not get on your nerves, if that makes sense?
Right. I think that the easy answer to that is to ask them what they need. You know, one of the fundamental things about communication is we have what we want to say to people, and we often don't ask them what they like to hear. So if I'm anxious and I'm worked up and I'm projecting that out into my spouse, I'm actually putting some energy out there that he may not even be experiencing. So what's important is to talk about the energy that I have that may be different than what he is having. And so the simple answer is really talk about what do you need, considering the conditions and the space that we're in right now. What do you need from me? And then share what you need from him. Right now, I'm feeling overly anxious. And how can I manage the anxiety that I have inside of me that is actually related to worrying about you? You have that conversation. And when you mentioned talking to your girlfriends, I think that is an outlet. But because of the anxiety is directed towards your husband, that's the first place that the conversation needs to take place. And you all come up with what works for you, for the both of you.
Well, you know, he was, you know, my husband knows me, right? And he knows that I'm not a person that is worried all the time or whatever. But, you know, I had to literally address my own stuff, right? I had to address my own situation, and where I come from too, seeing people get shot, and brother arrested, and all these different kind of things. So all of those emotions came up, right? That I had suppressed. I would say I had suppressed, right? And so my husband was just like, gee, I'm good. So can we do this? When I make it to work, before I go into the garage, because he loses signal, I'm going to give you a call and say I made it. When I get ready to leave, I'm going to tell you I'm on my way. Are we good? So we did have that conversation, but I thought I was being supportive and letting them know I was awake, making sure, all of these different things. And one of the ladies said that's something I would deal with too, on the chat here. And so, like I said, it's real. It's real with all that's going on. So for me, I have decided to turn the TV off, because it is just played over and over and over and over again. And that just builds anxiety. It builds, some hatred, all of these different emotions that we're dealing with, on top of COVID-19 and all of those different situations. And so, again, I just kind of wanted to see, from a different male's perspective, how we can support you guys and not be a nag and not get on your nerves and not call 1,000 times like I was doing and that kind of thing. And again, you're right, communication, and I know this, but again, when you're in the midst of it, it's hard to step back from the situation and think, what should I do? Is this being too much? And so you're right, communication is the key to that.
Right. I think not in the midst of it too. I think, prevention and intervention are totally different. Prevention is where we take a step back and we say the what if, if I'm doing this and you're doing this and you're going here, what can we actually do to help minimize our anxiety? And you just mentioned one of the things I said to people: if you want to manage your anxiety, manage what you're watching. If you want to manage your anxiety, manage what you're listening to, because what you put in dwells within inside of you. And so you kind of have to take some preventative steps to prevent some of that anxiety from kind of building up. Now, one is there, and I'm just talking about communication if it's simple, but really the sole purpose of communication is that even if I'm being a little bit aggressive, the communication allows us to have time to talk about what that means. And so this is not about preventing the anxiety and being overly worried, because that's just human nature. But when we get in that space, it's really important to talk about what does that mean and how can we get up out of that space. So it's not looking always to just get it right or get it perfect. It's just a process. And the key to being healthy is ongoing process. And there's no end point to that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. So let me just get into my juicy stuff that I really want to talk to you about. I've been doing a male's perspective for about 8 years. And I usually do it, and I usually record it, or, and I usually post it to my YouTube channel. And I've literally had asked these same questions to men from all over the world. So it's your turn to get in the hot seat. First of all, tell me how long you've been married.
I have been married now 8 years.
8 years, yes. And you have 2 little babies, right?
Babies. And I waited for that. I waited a long time to get married.
Okay. So tell me your occupation, your official occupation. I did a poor job of introducing you.
Well, I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist. I've been doing therapy for 22 years now. Most of my training has been in the military environment. I was on active duty, Air Force, lived in Germany, Turkey, all the places, traveled around the world. But that's my official title, but I'm also an entrepreneur. Like most people, I have a consulting business that I've had now for 13 years, where I provide consulting, counseling, and coaching services to individuals, families, groups, and organizations.
Yeah. And that's how I actually met you at mutual friends mastermind. We met and we kind of just hit it off, and we've been doing some things together, and I appreciate you getting on here. So question number 1, what is the best feature that you like about your wife?
My wife is domesticated by choice. And that's a feature for me. Domesticated by choice, meaning she has a bachelor's degree, she has an MBA, but I was saying domesticated by choice. We made a decision that as long as I bring home that bacon, that she would fry it up in the pan. And so that's our agreement. And that's the best feature, meaning she humbles herself per se to do that and do it well. And although she's educated, she chooses to do that. And so that's what makes it work for us. That's a feature of mine, that she humbly decides to be domesticated, although she's educated.
I love that. And so many women, so many of us wives, right, are educated, but we decided that we wanted to work outside of the home. And I always say, women who work inside the home, because it is work. I was at home with each one of my children. I was blessed to be at home with each one of my children for 2 years. And then I was like, I want out. I want to go outside. Right. I want to go outside. And even now that my children are older and I work from home, some days I find it hard. And I'm like, I'm going to go rent me some office space to get away from you guys, because it's a job you never leave. But like I said, my hat's off to you acknowledging that is one of her best features, because so many women think that they're less than because they have decided to be a domestic goddess. And when I say that's a goddess, that is a goddess, because again, in this day and time, that is like, really unheard of, to be honest with you. And most people don't know, most people who don't know me don't know that I literally cook Monday through Thursday for my family. And most people like, Gail, you don't even look like you can boil water. That's what I get a lot of times, but I'm actually an amazing cook. And that was one of the things that my husband was attracted to me at age 21. I could burn, right? And it was because I came from a long line of women who could cook. And they're like, listen, if nothing else, you need to be able to throw something down in the kitchen. And that is one of my passions. And I've been actually behind the scenes working on a cookbook from hot in the kitchen to hot in the bedroom. So that I'll throw that out there. So y'all can't take my name, I already own it. But anyway, so but that is something that is amazing. And I thank you for allowing that to be one of her attributes, one of her features, because most of the time men go with the body part kind of thing. So I love that about that. And so my other question to you is, what are the keys to longevity in marriage?
I have three. I mean, they real simple. I mean, a lot of people talk about them, but respect, trust, and communication, key. They open up doors, and it's like you can't have one without the others if you want longevity. And when I say that, respect helps with the communication. Communication helps with the trust. And so those things have to. My wife and I, we were just talking about this the other day, sitting at the kitchen counter. I was saying to her that, you know what, if I can't trust you, I can't be with you.
Yeah.
That is my key to longevity, because I can't be in a relationship where I'm suspicious all the time and I'm worried and this and that. And so one of the examples, the way that we demonstrate simple trust, is our phones. There's no passwords on them. And I mean, we have passwords, but we have the same password. So she can pick up my phone anytime she likes, no matter what. And people say, well, that's my privacy. And to me, it don't matter, because that's one way. That's just one simple way. There's other things we do, but that trust to me is critical. The respect.
Yeah. Now, Gil and I have this one shared thing that all our passwords are in, because again, I don't, there's nothing to hide. And even though we both had dealt with infidelity on both sides, and we recover from that, it's respect, it is trust, and it is communication. Mm-hmm. And I deal a lot with my practice, with people that with infidelity, and I'm like, you got to be able to communicate and come clean. Don't be trying to keep some little thing in the corner and think it's not going to ever come out. It might take you 5 years, but it's going to come out. So you might as well come on clean while the wound is open, and you can work towards closing it, right? So again, I love that, those are the three keys to anything, any kind of relationship, whether it's work related, whether it's friendship, whether it's marriage. And again, there are some people that are dealing with infidelity, and dealing with mistrust and all those kind of things. And again, if you want it to work, you got to come clean, no passwords. And if you do have them for, protection from other people, your spouse needs to know them. All these secret bank accounts, all of these different kind of things. I done done it all. So I'm an open book anyway. I didn't have secret bank accounts, secret everything, because again, I was raised with that mentality. I got to be able to have a way out, and I got to have my little stash over here. And that's not how really a covenant, because when you get married, you're in a covenant. It ain't just a piece of paper, it's a covenant. And so again, I love those things. If you could sum up your marriage in 3 nouns, what would it be?
Commitment, dedication, passion. Our marriage theme was committed to love, and commitment. That's what our theme was for marriage, because commitment goes a long way. And so the one thing that you do need in marriage is commitment, because you're going to be tried, you're going to be kicked, you're going to be whatever. And when I say to people, if you're committed to the process, and commitment is different than interest. When you're interested in something, you do it when it's optional. When you committed to it, you do it when it's even inconvenience. And anyone that knows anything about marriage, there's a lot of inconveniences that sometimes come with marriage. So you have to be committed to the process. And that commitment, when you say like dedicated, when I said to my wife, hey, this is kind of like what I want to do, I'm dedicated, and I feel that dedication because I'm obligated to the kind of like process. So that's key to me. And then the passion thing, for me, passion is that motivational energy that kind of like keeps you going, and it gives you to look for, and it inspires you. And so those are the things when I kind of like just think about my marriage, and when I think of where we're at, that commitment to it, that dedication, that passion, those are the things that kind of like keep us kind of like rooted. And I knew that about my wife when I kind of like married her. That commitment piece, like, I'm a Capricorn, she Capricorn, we kind of get into that.
Oh, whatever.
We stuck to that. When we make up our mind to do something, we go for it. And I knew that about her.
Well, me and my husband both are Aquarius, so still water runs deep. So, but I love that, because me and Gail been on July the 20th, we'll be married 32 years. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Yeah. And we've been on the brink twice of divorce, but we decided there is no plan B. There is no plan B. It is literally till death do us part, right? And so, but that started with me having to work on me, because throughout the marriage, I have been the crazy one, literally the crazy one. And I never realized how much baggage and how much stuff I brought into my marriage at a young age, just watching my elders do what they did and said what they said and all of those kind of things. And so I had to go retrain, get some counseling, sit on a couple of couches, work on Gail in order to be able to say there's no plan B, right? That we're in this to win it. And my husband has always been dedicated. He always has been a really good communicator. He always wanted to see us win, but it takes 2 people to be able to do that. And so I'm really glad, like you said at the beginning of this conversation, that you waited to get married, because you had to be ready. And so many of us, including myself, was not ready for the commitment, wasn't ready to not be able to have a plan B. Right. And so a lot of times we get in these marriages because it looks good, it sounds good, we don't want to be by ourselves, but are we really committed to the covenant? And so I really love that you and your wife are committed to that, right? And I know that's the reason why you're passionate and you're so good at what you do. Again, I'm in it to win it. You know what I mean? Like I told Gail, like we're gonna be like real. I'm gonna still be the one sexy wife at 90, right? I told him I'm outlive him already, and he like, you probably are driving me nuts, but anyway. So it is good. So hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you guys so much for joining us. You know, we're doing a male's perspective, and I have Dr. Buckingham here, and we're just having a really good time. So thank you guys for hanging in there. So I have one other question. I mean, a couple of other questions. Name 3 challenges you have faced as a husband, and briefly explain how you resolved them.
First challenge would be intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
And coming from a single parent household where I didn't have a father, and my mother's way of showing love was through actions and, language and things like that. And so in my marriage, I think I came into it like I unfortunately would say for a lot of Black men, we think that the key to making a woman happy is being a great provider. We think that the key to making a woman happy is being a great protector. But the key to truly making a woman happy is being able to nurture her.
Mm-hmm.
And that piece is what I was kind of like missing. That was a challenge for me. There was no doubt that she didn't have to worry about a roof over her head, house, cars, clothes, any of that. But when it came down to meeting her intimacy and emotional needs, I struggled with that. And one of the ways that I began to kind of like really overcome that is I began to kind of like get into this place. I do a lot of empathy work. And although I didn't receive it, I began to really do a lot of introspection, and I drill myself often with the same repeated question. And the question is, what would I want if I was in her shoes?
Yeah.
And when you do that, that positions you, despite the fact that you may be a male and you may not be good at that. I put myself in her shoes and I ask myself, if I was her, what would I need? And only way that works is you really have to know your wife. And I know that my wife is on the outside, she's a hard shield. And she doesn't necessarily have to ask for the intimacy. And she can actually go without the intimacy, the hugs and this and that. But when I know who she is, I know that she wants that. And so that question of what does she want, and if I was in her shoe, what does she want? It keeps me edging, moving towards her, and I find myself just doing the things. And here's the deal: I tell men, if it has to be robotic before it becomes natural, I don't give a care. Be robotic with it, meaning go through the motion, because in order for something to become habit, you have to practice it. And so get out of your head thinking about, well, it doesn't feel natural. It can't feel natural until you practice it and get good at it. And so what I mean by being robotic, I hug her and I do that. And I'm doing that because I'm making it logical. It's an intellectual move. But the more I begin to do it, the more I become accustomed to do it, and the more it becomes natural. So you got to start with that. That's one of the biggest challenges for me that was in place.
Okay, and Jennifer, you said it is all physical. Actually, it could be, but let me just tell you, it is a huge difference. And that's my follow-up question. It's a huge difference between intimacy and sex. And people get that so twisted. They think it's one and the same. Amazing intimacy can lead to amazing sex, but it is 2 different things. It has nothing to do with intercourse. It has all to do with, like he said, physical touch, mental stimulation. All of those different things have to do with intimacy. I just want to clear that up. And that was my next thing is, how come so many men, and I know you're on the clinical side, so you know the difference, but how come so many men get that all intertwined? They think that's one and the same. Like if I kiss you and I have sex with you, then we was intimate. And that's the reason why so many women feel very empty. And that's the reason why I created the program, Intimacy, Love, and Sex, because it's all different. And if you have amazing intimacy, that's what makes you fall in love. And that's what makes you want to have sex. It's very different for women. But go ahead.
Yeah, so that those, I wasn't actually referring to physical at all as I was describing that. More of our needs come from emotional, and the way we express them is physical. See, people don't understand that. I don't care if you're male or female. Even with sex is the libido. Libido is the energy. That is something that is felt, and you relieve yourself through the physical touch, that energy.
Mm-hmm.
So people don't understand when I'm speaking about, being intimate and meeting her needs. It's more of me understanding her psychological need for touch and affection. And the touch is just how I meet that need. But the key here is the psychological. So when I teach intimacy, I tell people there's spiritual, there's emotional, and there's physical. And the way that you build a strong marriage is you capitalize off of the spiritual energy. And that spiritual intimacy, you build off of that to develop that emotional. And then when you get in the bed, that physical is out of sight. But I'm not even talking about physical. I'm talking about like the spiritual need. I understand what my wife needs from me. And she actually needs affection, that it's emotional. My wife needs to know that I love her. My wife needs to know that I have her back. Ain't got nothing to do with physical. Now, when people feel that way, the physical can be intensified. And so helping people understand that, and even men, I think some women would say that, to your point, Gail, is that the pathway is that when he's touching and when he's doing other things, is ultimately in his mind leading to sex.
Okay. Before you continue, I have a couple of things going here. I don't know if you can see them. It says, since I got married last June, sex has dwindled. He said it's stress work related, but I've also gained 20 pounds since March. And then she does a follow-up. Do men really feel bashful about their bodies, or do they use that as an excuse? I feel like there's a lot of excuses.
So the answer to that is yes, is that men do feel bashful about their bodies. Each person is different in terms of what's important to them. But I do therapy with a lot of men who, believe it or not, struggle with having beer bellies and big stomachs and all other kinds of things, just like women do. And so is that an excuse? No, some men actually do struggle with that. Just like I've heard individuals say, for a lot of men, because again, the physical is like I was just telling you, that provider, that protector stuff, we get caught up on a lot of physical. So when I actually do therapy with couples who have this problem around sex, what comes into play is exactly what she described. The guy would say to me, you know what, when I met her, she was a size 8. 2 kids later and 40 pounds later, she's this. I'm not physically attracted. And, the problem with me with those kind of scenarios is that I found that most of them built their relationships on the wrong kind of intimacy in the first place.
Yep.
Because if you build it in a place where you was hot and he was hot and that drove and the sex was good and this and that, but a minute there was some drama, you couldn't connect emotionally, you had a problem from the beginning. So it doesn't really matter if you gain 30 pounds and he gains 30 pounds. The issue ain't about the pounds. The issue is about your emotional, intellectual connection. So all of his excuses, that if you want to get right down to the core, if you build your marriage on spiritual, and what I mean by spiritual, you ask yourself, why did I marry this man? Why did I marry this woman? And why do we coexist? And when you build it from there, the sex and all those kind of things become secondary. But most people, they go into marriage young, enthusiastic, their libido is high, the sex is good. But I guarantee you, in most relationships that are like that I've worked with in therapy, the sex was high, the energy was high, but the emotional connections were low.
Yeah.
And my couples that I work with have those problems.
Yeah, and I work with women and couples that deal with that every single day. And again, you have to quit focusing on the weight and all of those different kind of things, because again, a lot of times when men focus in on the weight gain or vice versa, that makes that person want to eat more and disconnect more, and that causes more problems. When you have to, when you're dealing with someone that's becoming unattractive in a sense to you, you have to figure out what is going on. It could be something physical, that they're gaining weight and they can't really control it. It's not like they're just sitting up eating, bonbons all day. It's a lot of different things, especially when you're dealing with women. We have hormone changes. We have all kind of different things that are going on in our bodies, and sometimes we can't even understand it.
So here's the deal, Gail, with a lot of it's difficult for me to see you as being attractive when I don't see myself being attractive. So what I find is that in order to be whole in marriage, you got to be whole in yourself.
So,
So
yes.
I find a lot of broken people looking for answers from their spouse.
Yep. And they wasn't created to give you those answers. They
That-
wasn't. And that's why I always tell people, and I just love when you went and you did your singles conference, you know, we talked about you have to try to be as whole as possible. You know, not perfect because nobody's perfect, but whole as possible. Because if you're trying to look for somebody to complete you, you setting yourself up for a disaster, literally a whole disaster. All right, so let me keep moving. I see some questions here. Amen. Do you help husbands get that? Thank you for breaking that down. We got a lot of comments going on, and let you guys know I always go back even after wife chat is over. I go back and I read all the comments. I go respond to the comments. And Buckingham, if you get a moment, you know, there could be some comments that you can elaborate on when we get off. If you get a moment, if you can't, I'm not putting you on the spot, but I will take care of it because we have a lot of things going on. What should every woman know about their husband? Just one thing that y'all probably necessarily wouldn't tell us, but we want to know.
Well, I think every woman should know the transparency within a man's heart. And that sounds a little complicated, but what I mean by the transparency in a man's heart, like we are so intellectual and logical in nature, and that is not truly sometimes who we are. If you get to know a man's heart and truly understand his heart, and if he knows his heart, he can actually love you in ways that his mind will not let him. And what I mean by that is I'm an intellect. And a lot of men are intellect because we've been taught to be strong and to fight. And so what we don't do well is give you our hearts. We don't. We love from the mind. We don't love from the heart. When you love from the heart is vulnerability. The heart allows you to let it go to that woman and not be afraid. And the example of that, I believe to love my wife from my heart, because when we got married, I initially had her do a prenup agreement because my logical mind said to me, you're established, you're a doctor, you got money, you got Range Rover, you got cars, you got this. She signed us some paper because my logical mind said to me that 50% of people get divorced. And so if 50% people get divorced, she is not stepping into my life and taking. This is the logic. But you know what? The heart said to me that the minute she's decided to sign it without any objections, that said to me, this woman is in it to win it. Let go. And I tore up that prenup. Tore it up. Because,
well, you know, at 21 years old, like I said, I did a lot of the man stuff. At 21 years old, my husband was in the second part of respiratory pulmonary school. And he was doing it, and I was paying for his, even though he was in the military, but to take them tests is $600 and $700 to take one test. And back then that was a lot of money. Of course, they're thousands of dollars now, but he was taking all of these tests to get certifications and all of these different kind of things, and I was paying for them. And so my thoughts is that we don't work out, right? Like, I can't open your brain and take your education, but you gonna sign for these couple of thousands that I didn't put into you, right? And then, like, maybe 6 years in, I was acting so crazy. I was like, I want my money back. Like, I was just tripping, right? And you know what he told me? He said, I just transferred you the money. And I was like, wow, that hit me. He said, you said you was rocking with me, but we talking about something that was 6 or 7 years ago. We got a kid, and you worried about I don't even know how many. I think it was like $8,000 I had invested, right? Which was not a lot for education, but I just was paying for all his tests. And he's like, I just transferred the money to you. And he said, I thought we was better than that. That literally crushed me when I looked at my behavior. You know what I'm saying? Because he really thought that we was in it to win it, but I was worried about that paper in that moment. And it's hard for, like you said, it's hard for men to give us our heart, especially when they act like I do or like I did. You know what I mean? And so really to get your, and one lady says, how do I get my husband to give my heart? Yeah. What a sign, no, what signs show a man's heart? What are some of the signs that you know that he's giving you his heart? I guess that's the question.
Right. So one of the signs is, as I mentioned, when a man is giving you his heart, there's a sense of vulnerability that is present. He's not afraid to be vulnerable with you. And another one is trust. When he's trusting of you, like I said, I tore up, destroyed that prenup agreement because my heart said to me, she's in it. I trust her. This is a sense of vulnerability. That's coming from the heart. The prenup was coming from the mind. So if a man is vulnerable enough to let you see him break down and he gives you the bare essence of who he is, that is a sign where he's showing you his heart. Is the vulnerability piece. Understand that. Is that a man who is okay with being vulnerable in your space is a man who's giving you his heart. It
took us a long time. And when I say long time, I'll be married 32 years, so it's relevant, but it took Gil a while to give me his heart because I had done so many things and said so many things that was not nice that he didn't give me his heart. Now, I know I have it on a silver platter now, but I know how to protect it and I know how to behave with it, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? I do.
I'm sorry. Another sign is when he's not afraid to love you, when he let go of fear.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the big things that I knew I was actually giving my heart to my wife. When I was able to break this thing that I call fear, fixation, and firmness, I broke this psychological trap, and its keyword is a psychological trap. And when I let go of that fear and I stopped being afraid to love her, that's when I was able to give her my heart. See, when you're afraid and that fear is there, it keeps you from giving. Your heart is guarded. You're in self-preservation mode. You said I do, but you're not saying I will. And when I say I do, I will be there for you. I'm not doing that. My heart was guarded. And so when you let that fear go and you're not afraid of being hurt, and if you do know she hurts you, it won't be intentional. It's just because we're not perfect. When a man is operating in that space, he's giving you his heart.
Wow. That's good. That's good. All right, let's get into something so we can wrap this up. What is the perfect date for you?
Perfect date for me now, literally with 2 kids, we can't go nowhere. So perfect date is sitting in the kitchen talking. No, I mean, we literally, we made a habit of, even with the kids, I mean, like literally, I don't even know if it's, I would say it is a perfect date because we actually do 2 kinds of dates. We do the date, and we literally call a date even with the kids. We go out, we go to a restaurant, we sit down, we enjoy each other, and it may be family. We call that still our date. And then the perfect date for us is we kind of like some of the same things. I'm a little introverted, believe it or not. My wife is introverted. So the perfect date for us literally is going to a restaurant, getting something to eat, catching the movie, and coming home. Like that's literally the space that we get to get in. And the restaurant piece is that we get to interact and we get to share, we get to talk. And then we just like to kind of like watch movies and just kind of like rest. So that literally is a perfect date. Low maintenance and just spending some time together in the same space. That's it for us.
If money was no object, what would be a place that you would take your wife today?
Money is not an object. So I mean, I take it with, no, I'm just.
Oh, well, that is an amazing place to be in. And, I asked my husband these same questions. And before we was like, shoot, money is the object, but we have been blessed as well. But so since money is no object, if you could take your wife anywhere right now today, where would you take her?
No, we actually talk a lot just about Africa, to be honest with you. I literally just wanted to kind of go to Africa because we travel quite a bit, and personally being in the military, I've lived in other countries and been in a lot of different places. And my wife and I, we go on cruises and do all that. So literally the ideal place though would just really to do a little tour around Africa. That's literally because we go to all the places in the States, and we've been to Paris recently, which was one of the big things for me. I lived in Germany, so I had been to Paris 6 times, but I wanted to take my wife.
I lived in Germany too when I was 4.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was in Germany, and so I brought my sisters and all of them, and we went to Paris 6, 7 times. But I also wanted to take my wife there so we could get on the Eiffel Tower, and so she could kind of experience that and see that. So that was great, but we don't have a lot of big desires other than literally doing a safari or something in Africa, like literally.
That's hot. That's hot. Okay. I got 2 more questions, and we're gonna wrap this up. How many times a day does the average man think about sex?
I say that that's an answer that depends on the age. And we all know that because testosterone levels and men's focus shifts. And so I don't know if that's an actual number. So I would have to answer that by giving you an age frame based on men, because I would say even for myself, if you put me between that 21 to 35, I would say like 5, 6 times a day. But you put me over that 40 age where my objectives and goals is about creating a legacy. Sex ain't on my mind as it like it is creating a legacy for my kids. And so I would say that shifts, I think, with people, with men's age per se. And also, we know physically, just with your hormones and with everything else that's going on with women and with men, I think that some of that medical things kind of like shift that. So the thoughts to me influence other life factors that are going on in your life. If a man is struggling to protect and provide for his family, I guarantee you a certain amount of his thoughts are not on sex, unless he just unfortunately don't
And
care.
that just helped answer one of the questions that one of my viewers was talking about, that her husband was saying that they're having less sex because he's stressed when it comes to his job and all those kind of things. So again, most men will not admit it, but I went back to school to become a sexologist, and you guys have what they call a male menopause, which is a drop in hormones as well. And one of my viewers just talked about and it could be some form of erectile dysfunction that's going on there, which you guys of course don't talk about as much as we talk about our menopausal things. So it's a lot of different things that go on with men. And I agree that it depends. When you're younger, that's what drives you. But as you mature and get some responsibilities and some other things going on in your life as providers and all those different kind of things, it does shift, just like it shifts for women. And
right.
So and most men don't want to talk about that. So I appreciate you being open and honest about that, because again, at BSB, one of the men, the guy that was up there, Dwight, he was talking about, again, the same thing you said. He's like, when we were younger, that's all we did. He said, as we matured and she matured, we have other things that bring us together than just the physical, right? We have the mental, we have the spiritual, we have all of the things, like you said, that make a marriage strong. And so that's good. Please, my husband is 64, and it seems like he is all the time. Ask myself, does he? So her husband is wanting to have sex all the time, and he's 64. So I think it just depends on the man. I think it depends on where his head is. It depends on his responsibility and how he handles stress. Everybody's going to react, in different ways.
Right.
Would you attest to that?
We do what we call this biopsychosocial assessment in mental health, right? And a biopsychosocial assessment is exactly what the words mean if you break it down. Bio meaning biologically. So what's going on with that man biologically? Does he have diabetes? Does he have health problems? That's biological, because it's going to affect his sex drive. So we say biopsycho. Psycho is, where's his mind at? Is he depressed? Is he healthy? Is he focused? Is everything lining up that he wants? And then biopsycho, the social piece, is what's affecting him. He's in this environment. Is he stressed about racism? Does he have family support? When I assess a person for any mental health problem, whether it be sexual dysfunction, depression, anything else, we do a biopsychosocial assessment. There's not one component to us that can just answer how we function as human beings. We look at the whole person. So there could be a person who is 64 and has no medical problems, sex drive is high out the door, life is balanced, and he's going to give it to you. And you can have a young brother, 24, and he can be stressed out with diabetes, this and that, and can't even get up.
Yep.
And so it's
and a lot of times, like I've told people that erectile dysfunction is not always something clinical. It could be mental. And a lot of people don't get that as well. But again, it depends, and everybody's different. So we're giving you guys a bunch of blanket statements because we want you, if your husband is experiencing any of those things, you need to see a healthcare provider, because again, we're giving you some blanket stuff. Because I gotta protect myself, because people are like, yeah, Dr. Buckingham said this. No. So we're gonna clear that up. All right, before we end, Dr. Buckingham, and let me just tell you, I never do a wife chat this long, but it's been good. They've been enjoying it. You guys, I appreciate you guys rocking with us this long. So I'm gonna ask you to fill in the blanks. My perspective of blank is blank.
My perspective of love is centered in God.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
That is good.
Because
good.
My perspective of love is centered in God, because love that we create is no good, but love that is centered in God is unconditional.
I agree with that. And that's the reason why Gail and I put God in the center of our marriage when we were struggling really, really bad. And that's the reason why I can literally say there's no plan B.
Right.
Because it is centered in love. And we have decided to love each other through anything. And communicate the best we can, because I think I'm an excellent communicator. Of course, I even went back to school to learn communication, because he told me I was a horrible communicator, and I was like, I think I'm pretty good. But when you hear that and you want to better yourself and you're in it to win it, and there's no plan B's, you work on yourself. So I'm constantly working on myself. I'm constantly being better for the people that God has called me to serve, which is my wives. That's the reason why I went back to school and became a sexologist, because I really needed to understand why we're struggling in the bedrooms, why we can't turn our head off from the hurt, and all of these different kind of things. So I have been blessed to be able to do what I love to do. And I know you have been blessed to do that as well, since you can just take African safaris, at the drop of a dime or something. Gil and I got to plan a little bit, but ballers do what ballers do. But anyway, I just want to tell you guys, thank you so much for hopping on here. This was good. I wish I had got exactly at 8, but you know what? You guys can definitely go back and watch the replay. It's going to be up on there again. Dr. Buckingham, do you have anything that's coming up that we can support? Anything you want to say or whatever before we get off of here?
Yeah, one question. I think somebody asked, what do we do for date night during COVID-19? What kind of stuff that we do? I think, you have to find some things that work for you. Again, we are movie kind of buff people. So COVID-19 for us has allowed us to see plenty of Netflix and a lot of different things. So that's kind of like what we've done since COVID-19. And that kind of works for us. But also, I would just encourage people to be creative during COVID-19 time.
Yeah. And I'm going to talk. I did a white chat about some things to do during COVID-19. Gil and I have became so creative. We did dinner under the stars, on our deck. We actually put a blanket down. We ate dinner outside and we looked up at the stars. We done stuff. I drive a SUV truck. So we literally went and got our dinner, did takeout, popped the truck, we turned on our music and we had dinner in the back of a truck, you know, just do different things in a park. We've done so many different things that you can continue to date your spouse. Learn to have fun. Like we literally turn on the music and we have our own dance party. And, you know, I have young kids here, you know, I got my nieces here. And so, you know, they think they know all the latest and greatest, but like, you know, me and Gil used to hold up a club. Like I told them all the stuff y'all doing right now, y'all just renamed it. Like we used to do the thing. So, you know, we did this dance party. I was like, y'all put it on TikTok and all that. Your uncle and aunt smashed y'all, but they didn't want to go live with that because they didn't want to be losers, right? But anyway, you know, we just, you have to find, like you said, with your family or with your spouse to do stuff, but be safe out there. You know, my biggest thing is, like I said, my husband is a medical provider and he's been in the medical field for years. And this stuff is real. And people are dying every single day. And it's going to come back with a vengeance, and they're trying to prepare the healthcare system for that. I'm just telling you guys, I'm not being a Debbie Downer, but this stuff is real. So protect yourselves and make sure that you continue to date your spouse. And if Netflix and a movie is good, that do that. If not, break out some board games, do some naked twister, whatever it is, do something that brings you guys joy and bring you guys closer together. But again, I did do a wife chat on things that, you know, creative date nights. Also, when I did Praise 104, if you go back and listen to that on their website, I talked about how to do some creative date nights on Praise 104. Also on my YouTube channel, I did some things on there as well. So it's some information that I've already given you guys to help you have a creative date night. But again, I love you guys to pieces. Have an amazing night. Thank you so much for joining me, Dr. Buckingham. Y'all stay safe out there. Have an amazing night. And thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Let's get it started. Harder, won't you give it up? What you want, body? We're gonna start it as we're one.